Well, good morning and welcome. Thank you for coming today to MnDOT's 2019 Road and Bridge Construction Kickoff. In a few minutes, the important people will come up and talk with you about our kickoff. At this time, the ground rules are essentially, please hold your questions until the end. And does everybody have good sound? Excellent. All right, I'd like to introduce MnDOT Commissioner Margaret Anderson-Kelleher.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Well, good morning, everyone. We're gathered here together to talk about Construction Kickoff, but I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Governor Walz's funding proposal as well. So I want to first of all greet everyone who's listening via webcast and watching via webcast today. Today, we are announcing that there will be 221 projects during this construction season. That means we'll also have about 66 multimodal projects, which are primarily in the rail and port area. And these are critical infrastructure projects that are going to help Minnesotans. They're going to repave our roads, mean a smoother ride, more safety for the drivers and everyone else who's interacting with the roadway, repair our bridges as well. And the projects are, of course, very important to many Minnesotans, and we also do know that it causes some stress out there when there are construction projects. And for that part of it, we empathize with the drivers who need to plan a little extra time in their schedule to get around. It's important to remember that most of the projects that we're talking about today on these two maps have been in the works for 20 years in their first planning stage, and then when they were programmed 10 years ago, and then finally put on our construction list 4 years ago. And I think that's an important point when talking about funding, because we have over 500 projects like these on our list that we would like to be able to complete for Minnesotans all around the state. 500 projects who are waiting in the wings to be completed. But without further funding, we will not be able to do that. Without this additional dedicated sustainable transportation funding, we will not be able to announce lists like this into the future with 221 projects. So anyone who's driven a car in the last few weeks knows that we're having some significant road roughness with potholes, and our crews are out working on that. But these projects are more about getting to the underlying issues of what causes potholes, what fixes potholes, and what helps our roads be more safe. Potholes are a symptom. It's like going to the doctor. Potholes are a symptom of an aging infrastructure. And so today, we're here to talk a little more about the grades that we've received from the American Society of Civil Engineers. And Minnesotans can access this out on the website of the American Society of Civil Engineers. They have graded many of our infrastructure areas in the state. But of course, here at MnDOT, we are most concerned about the grades that are happening on our roads and bridges and our transit system. And so particularly with bridges, we're on this grading system, we're at a C right now. And C is about average. It's not adequate for the future needs of Minnesotans. The roads are at D+, which of course, as a mom, I know that I would never have been happy if my kids came home with a D+. So as commissioner, I also want to make sure that we're making significant progress forward to change these grades and bring them up over the next bit. That's why I am proud of our hardworking employees here at MnDOT who will be on the front line, who have been planning these projects, who have been maintaining our roads and bridges, and who will work side by side with local contractors and others to deliver on the projects across the state. We do know that there's bipartisan acknowledgement that we have a funding issue in transportation. And Governor Walz pointed that out last night. There is really no debate on the need. There is some debate about how to fix that need, how to fund that need. And I just really want to stress again that the 20-cent increase in the fuel tax is about sustainability. It's about being able to deliver for Minnesotans what they expect. It's also being able to guarantee what the state constitution says, that our funding for roads and bridges, whether it's the gas tax, whether it's the motor vehicle sales tax, or the tabs you pay, go to roads and bridges. And so that's why the proposal is focused in this way. Recently, we had a week that I would say is one of those weeks at MnDOT where people are quite concerned. 14 blown tires on 94 in the Portland Avenue Tunnel. Now that pothole, that mega pothole, is fixed. But this again shows that we have a concern about what's happening. Minnesota will not be the only state this year to raise the gas tax or change their funding structure. Just this week, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, a Republican with, I believe, a Republican legislature, signed into law a 10-cent gas tax increase. This is not a partisan issue. Our roads and bridges are not red or blue or purple. They are roads that people depend on every day for safe travel. Minnesota has the 5th highest roadway miles in the country, but spends on average 15% less per 1,000 miles. That comes from the Minnesota Center for Fiscal Excellence. Since we have more roads in other states, we need to invest more. And I look forward to continuing conversations with the legislature, as I have been having. A number of legislators have been engaged with us on this issue. We are heartened to see the House of Representatives bill, and the governor knows that the work ahead is going to be really, frankly, some of the hardest work of putting a budget together, which is the negotiation stage. But I remain optimistic. I remain optimistic because I have Minnesotans every single day who tell me that they know we need this investment. Just yesterday, a couple drove to the MnDOT headquarters, bringing us pictures of bridges that they were concerned about in St. Paul. They met with a MnDOT staffer. They have passed those pictures on to me. I would say when you have rebar exposed, that is a concern. And so there we have citizens who are bringing forward issues, and they said that they support raising the gas tax. I do want to bring up Sue Mulvihill. She is the deputy commissioner, and she is the chief engineer at MnDOT. She is going to take you through a few of these projects. Come on up, Sue.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning, everyone. I am Sue Mulvihill. I'm the Deputy Commissioner and Chief Engineer for MnDOT. And I'm going to talk about a few of the major projects that we'll be doing across the state this summer. And we'll get into more detail on some of those a little bit later. But first, I actually want to talk about work zone safety. And what I want to start with is that each year, thousands of men and women go out and work on the system. They work on our transportation projects across this state and across the country. And they work hard to bring these projects to fruition. They're working on the projects that are important to all of us, and they're working on the projects that are important to our transportation system and to the economy of the state of Minnesota, because everything that you got today in your mail or in your breakfast or anything came on a transportation system of some sort. It had to get to the store, it had to get to you. That's what our people are doing. It's really vital that motorists pay attention anytime they're driving, actually, on any part of the system, but especially so in work zones. Because work zones, the roadway may be altered, we may have closed a lane, we may have shifted it over, we probably have some cones or barrels out there and some barricades. There will be equipment, and there certainly will be people out in those work zones, so it can be a hazardous situation. And we want people to pay attention and really put down your cell phone, don't eat breakfast, don't read the newspaper, and these are all things I've seen people doing. Really pay attention in the work zone and anytime you're driving. We want to have a safe state. All the workers out there, they're our friends, they're our family, they're our neighbors, And so we really want them to go home safe every day. They deserve to go home safe and sound every day with all their fingers and toes. Now, we're going to have some significant work zones this summer across major roadways in the state. We know it's going to be challenging. We know there'll be delays. It's frustrating for motorists. We all know that because we drive through them too. I drive through them to see how the work is going, see if there's things that we need to change. I know that all of my co-workers and peers here at MnDOT drive through work zones because it's just part of where you have to get to work and get home. So we understand the frustration, but I can tell you we certainly appreciate your patience and the way that you help us get through work zones by taking extra time. We will have extra information out there. We want people to know their routes. Now, there's a number of projects across the state, and I'm going to start with one of the bigger highways that we all know and love, I-35 from the south border all the way up to Duluth. And specifically, there's a few projects, I-35W over at 94. There's a lot of work going on there, has been going on all winter, and it will be ramping up more here as we get going. I think we've already had some closures this year. We'll have work on the Minnesota River Bridge between Bloomington and Burnsville. We're replacing those bridges and we're raising the south end of the bridges to bring it out of the floodplain, and that'll be a lot of work that's already going on. We're building a Min Pass lane on 35W north of Minneapolis from Roseville out to the north towards Blaine. And we'll also have projects around Forest Lake. We're replacing some bridges and some pavement up there. We'll have work also in Duluth, in the Duluth area towards Duluth on the north part of I-35 and on the south part of I-35 down to Albert Lee. So I-35 is going to be a challenge this year. Please plan ahead. I-94 out to the northwest of the metro from Maple Grove to St. Cloud. We'll have road construction going on there. We're adding some lanes and replacing some pavement. And that'll be between Maple Grove and District 3, our St. Cloud office. I-90 that goes across the south part of Minnesota from Wisconsin over to South Dakota. We'll have intermittent road construction there across I-90. And all of these routes carry not only a lot of weekend traffic and visitors and tourists, but they also carry a lot of heavy commercial traffic. So please take care when you're driving on any of those interstate routes. We'll also begin work on the final expansion piece of Highway 14 between Owatonna and Dodge Center, and that is the last piece of Highway 14 from New Ulm over to Rochester. So we hope to complete that later on, but that starts this year. Now, what all of these road work projects mean is that people need to plan ahead. They need to anticipate how their travel is going to be impacted. They need to understand that it's going to probably take longer, undoubtedly, and give themselves plenty of time. And who actually gives themselves any extra time today? I know I find myself going, I should have left 10 minutes ago, but you don't. But we would really appreciate if people do. We encourage you to know your route. We have a lot of tools on the website that will help people know their routes, including 511mn.org, which is a really handy app for your iPhone or your cell phone, and it tells you what routes are impacted, shows you by color. I use it every day between here and where I live. And there also are project pages on our website, at MnDOT's website, mndot.gov, that will talk about each of the projects. And if you can't find something on there, please contact our office. We have public affairs coordinators and folks here who will be happy to help you figure out what you need to have answered. Now, we don't have quite as many projects as we've had in past years. We're working on the roadways that carry a lot of traffic, and frankly, all roadways are impacted with traffic road construction. But the work is really necessary, as the commissioner said, to keep our roads safe and in usable condition and to preserve the assets that we've made a lot of investments in. The other thing that I'll mention is that there are a lot of big orange trucks that plow snow in the wintertime. They actually do a lot of different patching. She mentioned potholes. They do that in the summer. They replace guardrail and fences and all kinds of other things. There'll be maintenance work zones all over the place all summer long, and those are usually shorter in duration. But please watch out for our maintenance workers too. And at the end of our construction season, when we're all looking at nice new pavement and new stripes and new signs, we can breathe a sigh of relief and be glad that this construction season's over, and hopefully that we can continue to have a safe one and make sure that people, including workers, motorists, and all of us get through there safely. It's a huge part of our mission, and that's part of why MnDOT actually exists. Thank you so much, and I'm going to invite our friends from State Patrol up. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. My name is Lieutenant Gordon Shank with Minnesota State Patrol. With the end of winter comes spring and summer, which brings construction season. Just some numbers on construction season and motorists that take risks when it comes to driving in work zone areas. In the last 6 years, between 2013 and 2018, 52 people lost their lives and more than 4,800 people were injured in work zone crashes. In 2018 alone, we had 9 people die in work zone related crashes and another 534 that were injured. Put the distractions away and plan ahead. If you take nothing else, plan ahead for the construction season. We say it during winter with winter weather. We also say it during construction season. Have a plan, give yourself extra time to get to where you need to be. People that are late take risks, and we don't want that to happen. Give these construction workers time and space to do their job, just as we ask you to do for us when we're working on the roadside. They have a job that they need to get done, and we want to make sure that they have the safety to do that job and make sure that they don't have to worry about being hit or have someone that takes a risk that doesn't need to in a work zone area. Also, keep in mind that if you are speeding in a work zone area, the fines can be doubled. And if you are speeding, we will stop you for it, and you could be cited for speeding in a work zone area. Use the apps, check 511, plan ahead, put the phones down, don't do it, put the distractions away. With that being said, every driver is responsible for their actions, so keep yourselves accountable, and if you see someone in the vehicle doing something that you don't think is safe, speak up. If you see somebody doing something in a work area or even in any area of the freeway, call 911, report it. Troopers will find that vehicle and attempt to get it stopped. Plan ahead, be safe, and make sure that everyone gets to where they need to go safely so that we don't have to keep bringing up statistics of people that lost their lives as a result of an action that was completely preventable. Put the distractions down and plan ahead. With that being said, I will introduce Michael Beer. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Michael Bear, MnDOT Metro Construction Engineer. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about some of the projects in our Twin Cities metro area this year. Road crews will be hard at work on over 75 projects in the Twin Cities this year. We know some of these projects may test your patience and ability to navigate alternative routes, but in the long run, it means better road surfaces and bridges, reduced congestion, improved safety, and more transit, bike and pedestrian facilities. This will mean different and sometimes difficult travel routes for workers and people trying to get to and from work, delivering goods and services, and getting to our great Minnesota destinations. But it also means dangerous work conditions for the workers who are out there building our new transportation network. So I implore you, when you're out there driving, please pay attention to the signs and roadway markings as you're entering our work zones. Avoid all distracted driving, and above all, follow the speed limit. Your car is oftentimes just feet from many of our workers out there. That leaves little to no time for workers to take cover should there be an errant vehicle traveling into the work zone. Now I'm going to talk to you about 3 major hotspots in the Twin Cities area this year. Those hotspots are 35W from Burnsville to Chicago City, Rush City. Sue covered some of them. I'm going to provide a little more detail on those. 494 in South St. Paul, Inver Grove Heights area, and the 94, 694, 494 interchange in Oakdale. This year will be very busy through the metro area as well on 35W and I-35. So ease back in your seat, buckle your seatbelt tight, and keep both hands on the wheel as I journey you from south to north along our projects here. There are 5 major projects that I want to cover from Burnsville to Rush City. The first project is the Minnesota River Bridge Replacement Project. This project started last fall and will continue through 2021. Now, good news, given all the flooding concerns and road closures along the Minnesota River this year, on I-35 we'll be raising the grade of 35 to get us up and out of the floodplain. And we'll also be replacing the bridges and pavement on 35 between Cliff Road and 106th Street. There will be several ramp closures on 106th, long-term closures on 106th and Black Dog Road, but on 35 we will maintain 2 lanes in each direction plus a third min-pass lane in each direction during the peak travel times. Our second project, further to the north, in Minneapolis, is a project that should be very familiar to people from our last year's worth of work out there. We're in year 2 of 4 years of construction on the I-35W downtown to crosstown project. On this project, we're rebuilding roads and bridges, fixing and adding ramps, constructing a transit station at Lake Street, and making improvements for the many walkers and bikers in the area. This year, the 28th Street Bridge will reopen, and southbound 35W will be switched on to new pavement, ending the reign of the potholes on that stretch of 50-year-old southbound pavement. And may I say, on behalf of the many motorists and maintenance workers, good riddance to those potholes. Our third project, which started this week, is between Roseville and Lionel Lakes. We started our first year of 3 years of construction on a 12-mile stretch of 35W between Highway 36 and Sunset Avenue. We're installing a min-pass lane on both sides to provide a more reliable commute to increase highway safety along with bridge and pavement improvements. Northbound, some significant impacts coming up here. Northbound 35W will reduce to 2 lanes for the season starting this Monday, April 8th, and southbound will reduce to 2 lanes for the season starting the following week. Our fourth project along 35W, and good news here, we're in the second and final year of this project, is on I-35 split in Forest Lake, where we are surfacing 6 miles of pavement and constructing 4 new bridges. During a significant portion of the summer, northbound 35W as you approach the split will be reduced to a single lane. Users may want to consider 35E as an alternate to that reduced capacity there. Also, a little bit of improvement here for traffic is we're going to employ movable barrier north of the split to try and maintain smooth traffic conditions during the first half of the summer during the peak conditions. And then finally, to the north edge of the Metro District, our fifth project I want to discuss is on I-35 from Harris to the Chisago County line, where we're resurfacing the road to improve pavement conditions and ride quality, safety, and drainage. I-35 is a big one. I-35 through the stretch will be reduced to a single lane of head-to-head traffic beginning from about May to the end of September. So expect long backups during peak travel times here. So if you can, adjust your travel time to avoid those high traffic congestion conditions or look for alternative routes. So concludes our construction journey on our I-35. Moving on to the Southwest Metro in Dakota and Washington counties, I want to talk about 494 and Inver Grove Heights and South St. Paul. Crews will continue to work there on resurfacing, redecking our bridge and widening the bridge over Concord Street to improve traffic flow and safety. We're also doing drainage improvements, retaining walls, and noise walls in the area. Lane reductions on 494 will be needed to complete this work, including this Friday into Saturday morning. Westbound 494 will be reduced to a single lane through Saturday afternoon, so we will definitely be experiencing some congestion and backups in that area from approximately Highway 61 to 7th Street. Also, to address deteriorated pavement conditions a little further to the west of that project on 494, we have another project starting in July, which will carry into next year, 2020. There will be periods of reduced lanes on that project and several weekend closures this fall as we resurface the deteriorated pavement in that area and make improvements to some of the bridges from approximately 7th Street to the Minnesota River Bridge. And the last project I wanted to highlight today is the interchange at I-94, 694, and 494 in the Woodbury-Oakdale area. There is one of the loops, we're going to improve the curve on that loop where there's been a number of truck rollovers in the past. That will help our freight traffic and commercial traffic. And interesting on this project, we're going to do a bridge slide, which will be, I think, the second one we're doing in metro area. So we're taking the in-place southbound bridge there, and we will slide that into the median and use that to create the space to build a new bridge while we can still maintain southbound traffic through that area. A little bit innovative work there and saving some taxpayer dollars. We know this year will be a challenge for drivers, people driving in and near our project areas as we improve our aging infrastructure. We're aware that construction cuts into your time, tries your patience, so we have some tools that will help you out. As mentioned earlier, before you head out on the road, look at 511, not 911, 511. There you can check our website information, or ideally you can personalize an account. When you punch in your phone number in a personalized account, the system will provide information about your particular route, saving you some time. There's also a website or in addition to the website, there's an app that's handy for audible reports. It gives drivers the construction work and incidents or crashes that may have occurred within 20 to 30 miles of your location while you're traveling. Our weekend traffic map is a much in-demand feature that we provide every Thursday to keep everyone up to date on construction or maintenance work that might affect your weekend plans. More detailed background information about projects and information for businesses and trucking companies is available through that update map every Thursday. Another great option to check out is to check out transit alternatives or carpooling with neighbors or coworkers to save yourself some time. Above all, we want to thank you in advance for your patience and for driving safely in our work zones. Good driving behavior prevents injury and death for both the road crews and motorists alike, and I want to make sure that everyone makes it home safely every day. We appreciate the opportunity to work for you and with you. After all, who doesn't just love road construction? Thank you. And with that, I'll open up to questions for myself. We have our 5 resident construction engineers here with a little more detail on all our projects or any of the previous speakers.
Commissioner, I saw that you have a booklet of possible projects
Yes.
specific to each district.
Yeah.
Have you been sitting down with legislators and sort of laying out, here's what you could have if
Yeah.
you get on board with the test tax?
Yes, so the question was about a booklet that we have available. We actually have individual sheets available on the website under the Sustainable Transportation Funding Package page. Those pages reflect Senate district and therefore House district by House district what is illustrative of what could be done. And this comes directly from our district engineers. So this is coming up through the ranks of our professionals about what could happen over the next few years should the funding package be successful, which we believe that it will be successful. And the reason we're doing that is it's actually twofold. It is to visualize what can happen with the funding, which is important. But the second part of it is to have this conversation about how long it actually takes to program projects. And I would just stress again, I was thinking about this. The first time a project enters into the MnDOT list is 20 years out often. And when you think about that, that's like the time from birth to the graduation of a child with a 2-year degree. So when it gets to the 10-year list, we're really talking about that stretch from middle school up to that graduation point. And then we finally get into that 4-year period, and many of the projects you're seeing today have been in that 4-year period. So helping legislators understand that although individual needs come up, there's often projects that come into play that they may want to see happen. It takes a while to be able to plan, to let the bids in the best way possible, to then sign those contracts and get those crews ready to go, and then get them out into the field building and doing the maintenance. So it's twofold, actually. And anyone can see those lists. They are actually up on the website. So any Minnesotan can see what we're talking about here. It's important for Governor Walz and for myself to have transparency in what we're sharing with the legislators so they can see it as well.
You touched on a little bit of the projects that can't be done without some of that funding.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit more and where those areas might be?
Yeah, so what we're speaking about today is the 221 projects that are going to be happening this construction season. And the booklet that we're talking about largely reflects the 500 projects that cannot really go forward all in the sort of timeline that I think most Minnesotans would expect without some future funding. And so that list is about 500. And what also is happening, such a good question. There are two things that are really happening in our construction budgets. The first is the value of the dollar raised it has some pressure on it. It has pressure because we have raw inputs that go in to building or repaving a road. Concrete, asphalt, steel, the cost of all of those things have been rising since the Great Recession. We also have labor costs. They too have been rising recently. And so this is an important point that we also need to have the funding because to get the dollars to go further out there. Now, people often wonder what percentage of the dollars are going rural Minnesota versus urban. And generally speaking, in any construction year today, because our size of our roadway, the 5th largest in the country, and the condition of our roadway, 60% of dollars go to rural Minnesota districts, 40% are being spent in the metro area. Without further funding, that is going to shift even further to 70%, 30%. And often you heard Mr. Bear talk about this, that the projects that are happening in the metro area tend to be a little larger project in terms of both cost and scope. When you're redoing the Minnesota River Bridge, that is going to be a sizable project. When you're doing a project like I-94 and 35W, it is going to take a lot of resources. We see this coming in Duluth as well with the Twin Ports Interchange and the Blatnick Bridge. The Twin Ports Interchange, I believe, is right under, give me a number, around close to $250 million. The Blatnick Bridge right now, the Minnesota obligation to that is probably close to $300 million and not programmed out yet into our construction schedule.
Compare this year to maybe last construction season.
Michael, can you?
Last few.
As far as number of projects, traffic impacts,
Sure, like the scale of it all, I guess, you know, in your professional opinion, is this more than last year or?
I think it will be similar to last year. I mentioned I-35, more projects coming on that, so that particular corridor is definitely heavier than last year. Last year we had projects spread around the metro more, but as far as number of projects, we're usually in the metro about 75 to 100 projects every year, and that includes multi-year projects, not necessarily ones that start every year. And traffic impacts, the last few years we've had more projects, larger projects on the West Metro. Those are wrapped up now. So we're starting to see more work in the Central Metro and East Metro areas where there'll be more challenges getting around with the number of projects and limited alternative routes to get between those projects should you choose to avoid our work zones.
Can you speak to some of the bigger projects in greater Minnesota?
That I cannot. I'm just focused on the metro area, so maybe Sue, if you'd.
We do have a number of projects across greater Minnesota. We're working on Highway 90. I talked about that. We have we have a big project up on Highway 61 on the North Shore. You can see that there. That is going to cause people some trouble when they're trying to get up to Grand Marais, those things. And even though 61 isn't like a major roadway, it's a huge tourist roadway for us. So there's a lot of work that gets done there, and there's not a lot of good detour routes around there. So that's a challenging one. We also have Highway, looks like 73 going up north there. That's going to be a challenge too because it's a two-lane, two-way road. A lot of the projects in greater Minnesota are two-lane, two-way roadways, and the challenge there is finding good detour routes for them that aren't like miles out of your way. So we'll work with each of our districts to make sure that we can help people get around to where they need to go as efficiently as possible. So, and Red Wing. Oh, and we have there's a large bridge replacement project in Red Wing. That's our District 6. They're working on that bridge. They've been setting beams, and they did some work right in downtown to improve the geometrics there so that people take a different turn to get on the bridge to go across to Wisconsin. So that'll be a big project and a big impact on Highway 63 and 61 in Red Wing this year.
Can you pick out maybe like the largest project either by scale or in terms of projected cost for this season?
Oh, it's probably 35.
Yeah, 3594, I think.
Yeah.
is the-
Yeah, so that project will be the 35W 94 downtown to crosstown project. That's about a $240 million project spread over 4 years. Includes the construction of a new transit station at Lake Street that will have access to the buses and the future MnPass lane when we're done completing up on 35W.
Well, thanks, everyone. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.